impact you're having across our communities through your community service, through your art is amazing.
Nobody gets to use me anymore. Nobody gets to profit off my pain anymore. Nobody gets to profit off my trauma.
All right, welcome everybody to the next episode of the Impact Policy Podcast. Today I'm joined by the amazing, staunch, deadly trailblazer who we call Barkaa. She's the black matriarch of hip hop in Australia right now, someone who I've had the privilege of knowing for a long time and have been able to watch her journey over the years. So to be able to share some space with her today is an absolute privilege. So I really hope you take some time to enjoy what I feel like is probably one of our most special episodes and one of our most enjoyable ones as well. Thank you.
You still working at JJ's?
No, I run my own consultancy now.
Deadly.
Yeah, so I run this organisation called Impact Policy. So we work with like all government organisations around pretty much how to change the system, you
Deadly.
know? So we're working with DCJ around reforming the forced, child removal sort of problem that's systemic through there.
Yeah.
We're doing a whole lot of stuff with Wallama List. I don't know if you heard of Wallama List.
Yeah, my brother recently went through
Yeah, mad.
Deadly.
We're doing the evaluation of it. So we're doing a whole lot of stuff in that space. So that's what we do now. So Maddie helps us with that. We've got a couple other people that work with us. And I guess the power of these yarns is that people that watch this stuff, they're all people that are passionate about making a change and working in the social justice and social change space. So like hearing insights and stories like yours and the lessons and all that sort of stuff adds so much value for what we need to know, because not enough people understand the lived experience of people and the expertise that brings to actually doing it right.
Yeah.
We often bring people in that have no understanding of how our communities and our lives are like making decisions about what should happen,
Yeah.
And I know you got so much of a, real insight into that world and that space. So, yeah.
That's deadly, yeah.
Yeah, that's what we
Wallama
do.
was freaky.
Yeah.
Because my brother ended up getting sentenced, and they're like, which was great because he's still drinking, and we're like, oh look, we get you have an addiction, but it's more like your trauma what needs to be addressed, not your addiction.
Yeah.
And I'm like, God.
Yeah.
And then the judge takes his wig off and his robe, and he comes down and he cuddles my brother, and I'm looking at him like, all right, abolishment friends aren't gonna like this. Like we got because we're in we talk about abolishing prisons and stuff, and here he is hugging a judge, and then the judge looked at me and he's like, and I'm like,
go on then.
and Ricky Onus is there. I'm looking at it like, please don't tell it. And then the
100%.
police prosecutor comes back us, and I'm just like, only my brother can, it's his life.
Yeah.
That he'd be hugging judges and they'd be taking their wigs off, like, yeah, come give me some love.
Totally, but that's the thing though, hey, when you change the system from being about punishment to being about healing.
Yeah.
That's what happens, right? Yeah.
Everyone. Like, I never seen judge, like, that judge was a human to me in that moment. The police prosecutor, I didn't hate her, which was weird, but it's like, oh, you're human. Like, people don't want to see people suffer. Yeah,
absolutely.
It's just that, like, that education around.
That's it.
People aren't bad, they just do bad things or just find themselves in situations.
Yeah, that's it. Hey, can you just twist your mic a little bit more to your lips there? Mad. 100%. And that's one of the things that... That's mad. But that's what a lot of the brothers were saying when we was yarning to them. They were like, one lad was like, I shook the hand of the prosecutor. He goes, I've been in and out of jail since I was 10 years old. He goes, that's unheard of that you would even acknowledge a prosecutor, let alone shake their hand, you know? And he goes, like, that just speaks to the power of what that space can be when you actually understand why it is we're there and what brought us to be doing what we're doing, Yeah.
No, it really, because it's like two different worlds. You see a police prosecutor for police, black fellas, we're just, we don't get along, we're different. They're from that side of the world, we're from this side of the world. And it's like, it's crazy to think, oh, hey, they're humans and they actually, like, you just kind of it's nice to be like, oh yeah, we're breaking down things and humanizing people on both ends. It's really beneficial. Because blackfellas, we don't, most of our things where we do fear people or stay away from people is out of fear.
Yeah.
Like it's not out of us not dislike, like, or purely, oh, I don't like you because of the color of your skin, or I don't like the way you look. It's like, no, like we're scared of you.
Yeah.
That's why we stay away. And then we, you know, that fight or flight, we just put that survival mode, we put that front on. So it's like, but it's like the people we do stay away from. So it's nice to be like, hey, you don't have to be scared. I mean, some.
Yeah. They're listening now.
Still watching you.
Yeah,
like,
100%.
But it's nice to, you know, see that. Like, and it was, you know, and then I got to know this judge is a gay man as well. And I'm like, you know, and he humanized my brother like as a black gay man, and he understood my brother. And I was like, oh, he actually, you know, I wouldn't have known that about a judge. I wouldn't have known he come from the community. I'm like, oh, that's cool. That's awesome.
Yeah,
you know?
absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, for people that are listening that aren't across some of your story, would it be fair to say that you've had a significant experience with the justice system growing up and as an adult? You spent much time in
a little bit.
A little bit?
A little bit.
How did do you remember how we met, the first time we met? Do you remember where that was?
Gina Perina?
Was that Gina Perina? Yeah. I reckon this is probably
I think you walked me up to we was having a yarn walking up to I got in induction, and then you was the JD come up and then walked me down to
Justice Health.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you'd come back in on like juvenile charge or something, because you were older than 18, I think. Maybe you were 18 or maybe
I think 7. Maybe just because I turned 18, I went in.
Yeah, okay, yeah. And you weren't there for long though, right? But it was a pretty powerful moment that we had together, and it's one that's always stuck with me, you know. Especially seeing not only that you've been able to, so much of our people get trapped in the cycle, you know, for many reasons. But not only have you managed to survive and break that cycle, but you managed to thrive, and you're trailblazing and leading the hip-hop scene across Australia, or if you face on billboards across the country. And to remember where we first connected to see where you are now, it just makes me so proud, you know. And it just means so much to me, to my family, to know, you know. And I think that's the real power in who you are, is in your existence. It gives insight and hope and power to so many people across this country, black, white, whatever. Anyone that can empathize with what it's like to be stuck in a cycle or in a struggle, or to be dealing with trauma and addiction, you know, often feels like there's no way out. Not only are you a living example of being able to find a way out, to not only survive, but you're thriving. And that's what is so important for me, you know, with family that have had similar situations like that. Your existence gives me hope. You know, I think like if I can see Barkaa doing what she does, and that gives me hope for my family members that are in their cycles at the moment, that there's hope for them to find that strength, you know. So I love you so much, and I'm so happy you're here, you know. It means so much to me.
Oh, I love you, my brother. God, I'm a rapper, I'm a gangster. Don't make me cry this early.
Yeah.
No, I feel, you know, it's like a full circle moment right now for me. You know, to be able to sit with you, you know, and we were sitting in a whole different, you know, I can leave this time.
Yeah, I'm not holding the keys.
Yeah.
You're not in greens, yeah.
But, you know, having you there, like, you know, seeing mob in those spaces where, you know, it became a safe place for me, like, you know, which is, it's a funny thing because it's like, you know, and we talk about, like, it brings it back to, like, having mob in there and having those spaces. Sometimes prison and juvie is a safe place for mob to escape to from the real world, you know. Sometimes going and handing ourselves in is just a better option than actually being outside, you know. So having mob in those places that make it feel safe is like does wonders.
Yeah, absolutely.
Even though it's not a great situation where our kids or our youth or our mob are, but we need I feel like every space, even juvies and prisons, should be made a better space for all, like if you're already getting, me trying to get good feeds into the jails, like Gina Perina feeds.
Totally.
Everybody needs a little weep, play a little weep. But, it's that full circle moment, because it's like, and I wouldn't be who I am, without you and everybody who's been building me up on my journey, and who's been a part of it and paved this for me. Like, I wouldn't be who I am without you, mob, or without the community, and everybody who's lifted me up along the way and said, hey, you're better than this, like, hey, you're deadly, and even that, just like in those places where it just felt dark and cold, and when you're just like, oh, hey, sissy, like, how you going? You all right? That meant everything to me, Yeah. Because it's like, oh, I wasn't, but I feel right now, like I'm okay. And, when you have mob in there, you're like, just mob make you feel safe,
Yeah, totally. When I reflect back to that time when you would have only been 17, 18, even though you were dealing with serious addiction and you had stuff going on in your life, you always come across, there was like a level to you in terms of like, it's not saying anything about anyone else or any other young people that were in custody, but there was a certain level of like maturity or insight. Maybe insight's a better word.
I'm not mature.
Yeah, that's it. But and I was so, in a lot of ways, although it's so powerful to where you are today and what you've managed to overcome and get to where you are. There are many other young people that we've worked with over the years that had that same level of insight and intelligence and potential that sadly are still stuck there for whatever reason. So, but my memories of you are always like, man, she's so intelligent, so strong, so much insight around her own experience, what's happening in community and all that sort of stuff as well. And I think that sort of really resonates and comes through with what you're doing now, right? With your storytelling and the power of all that for our people. You talked about juvenile justice could be a safe space at some points for you. Was it ever like that for you when you spent some time there?
Yeah. Like, I handed myself in, or I'd purposely go out, and if I wasn't in trouble or if I didn't have anything going, if I finished my court cases or anything, I'd purposely go out and commit crime so I could have a juvenile justice. Like, that's my support, like if I didn't have a juvenile justice worker, mum's flat out working,
Yep.
I need that support. And if I didn't have, my JJ, in my head, I didn't have support, so
yeah, wow.
and it was like that. I've been all the way up until 25, I've had caseworkers in my life, so it's like, and I'm 28 now, so it's like even trying to get around the fact that, hey, I can do this myself. Because it's always like, I just thought, hey, I need, and it's I just found it, if I was on the street, I couldn't say no to drugs. It was easier for me to be, like, it was safer for me to be in custody than to be a young girl on ice. And the only way, have to hang out with creepy, creepy characters and
absolutely
do things, or like, or go and commit crime, go and rob, like, go and do creeps and break bananas, like, just to feed my habit. And I was just like, it's safer for me, and I get a good feed in this like the sister girls are in here, we get roof over our head, I get my own room, I get TV, I got a little radio, I get to record tracks with Darren Dunn.
Shout out to Darren Dunn.
Darren
Dunn. For way for Barkaa, 100%.
Do done, bud.
Let's go.
Do done, brah. Yeah, like, juvie was it was safe. Not to say that, like, like, my family are beautiful people, but it's just like the environment I created for myself outside, I just couldn't get out of that trap.
Totally. That's crazy that you, at one stage, committed more crime so you could get more support. Like, that just blows my mind, you know, and I'm sure that you're not the only young person that's felt like that, you know, or has felt like they're more safer in custody than they are in community. I know for me, reflecting back, like you would see, like when young people spent more time in custody, I'll word it better. The ones that just come in and out all the time, you could see like, what's the point? Like I remember one of the sisters got brought down from Tweed for stealing a Mars bar and a can of deodorant, down to Tweed to Lidcombe, where she stayed on remand for a week before she got released again. Like, it's like, what cycle does that do to support that young person that's dealing with whatever's going on in her life? But then there will be other young people, like people from me and Maddie's community in Glebe, that we knew that they were really off the rails. And when we seen them in Juniperina, they were there for, you know, a significant period of time, in a sense that like they were able to detox, not be using, and they were going accessing programs and school and stuff like that. So it's a hard balance, because but it shouldn't be, you shouldn't have to go to prison to get that, right? We need to be able to find a way to have those sorts of spaces, and safe spaces and black spaces in our communities. Yeah.
We do. Like, I felt like, and I just had that thing where it's like, I was allowed to be a kid in juvie. I got to do school. You know, I tried to swear on rap tracks and I was like, that's not allowed. And I'm like, okay, I'm not a big woman, you know, and I felt like I could be a kid there. The outside world got black kids growing up way too fast, you know. And things are changing. Like, I mean, my baby's 13 and she still plays with dolls, which is really nice, because I'm like, I wasn't playing. I wasn't playing with dolls at 13, you know. I was getting in trouble. So it's nice to see that my daughter's like, you know, but it's like there's a lot of us that just grow up before our time, because we gotta, like, that's just like, you know, you just gotta, like, and, you know, we see a lot of our, you know, our parents living in survival mode all our lives, and then see our brothers, our big brothers and sisters, our uncles living in survival mode. So I just was like, I can be a kid in here. I can get an education. I knew that I couldn't go back to mainstream school on the outside, but there was always a place for me in Juniperina, and I love school there. Because I felt like, at least I'm getting like, I felt like that gave me purpose, you know. Whenever I was getting an education, I felt like I was, hey, my life might be looking chaotic and crazy, but hey, I got this under my belt. Like,
totally.
You know?
I reckon that's really powerful what you say too, right? Because like the mainstream education world at the moment, there's hardly any other alternative school programs that look like what Juniperina looked like. And we know for a lot of young people in our community, they're experiencing challenges, or they're struggling, or academically they're just not keeping up, and that stuff starts to manifest in behavioral problems and things like that. There's nowhere else for them to go. And so our young kids get labeled as like, they're disengaged, they're not interested in school and all that sort of stuff. But really, if we had more places like Juniperina in our communities, we know that our kids are thirsty for knowledge. Our kids are thirsty for connection and purpose. It's like the exact words that you talked about, you know. So, the more spaces that we can create that exist like that, the less we, have to wait till we are, you know, locked in a prison to find that. So, it's so significant what you talk about, you know.
Do you feel like you get that one-on-one? Like, you feel like you actually matter? In mainstream school, it's like, go by the by, you know?
And if you can't keep up,
you're out. Like, you just, you don't get a chance to catch up. Or then you got to repeat in front of your friends. And that's embarrassing.
That's it. Whole shame factor all in that. Like,
I repeated year one. I'm like, how the can you repeat year one? I'm like, why would you do that, Mum? I could have caught up.
That's it. I repeated year 9.
That makes sense. Though. I was counting dinosaurs. What did I do wrong?
That's it.
Sort of think like, how can you fail year one?
100%.
I was just playing games because I was black.
True.
I reckon.
I was shame about it in year 9, and then when I got to year 12, everyone from the year I was in, they ended up repeating year 12.
Oh, true.
So all them ones were like, no, look at you repeating year 9. I was like, we're all back together now. Like, who's laughing? Who's laughing? But mad.
They need that with, because it's just it's like that go with school.
Definitely. And that's where your music sort of started to happen as a young person, eh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
When I was 14, it started in high school, because I remember, like, I just didn't want to. I mean, me and all my Islander mates was just like, you know, just love spitting raps.
Yeah.
They weren't good.
Yeah.
Probably better than all of them. Nah, jokes, guys. You know, I was it was like, and our English teacher, Mr. Graham, he was deadly, because he'd substitute English. He was a woodworks teacher, but he'd substitute English a lot of the time, which was great, and he'd just get me to sit outside. You know, I'd have my little desk outside the classroom, and I'd sit and write raps, and he said, "Oh, as long as you're writing," and he'd grade it for me.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, and
I love
and then
that.
he'd make me rap it in front of everyone, which I think that's his punish, because it was shame. But some of the kids were like, you know, and yeah, he was great. Like, I thought Mr. Graham out of just a great teacher. Like, I look back at that, it wasn't nothing to me back then, but now I look back and I'm like, oh, that's a way above his time, you know, ahead of his, you know.
Absolutely. And it's also like, it's really powerful too, because it's him as an educator. He's looked at a student and he's seen, like, this is the hook that's engaging this student, you know. So let's give her some space to rap, to write. Like, it's, as opposed to going, oh, we're supposed to be writing an essay and you won't write it, so like you're useless, or you can't. You know, it's identifying how we learn, how we what our passions are, and finding a way to gently feed that. Which sounds like he planted some seeds for you in some ways.
Yeah. Like, if it wasn't for him, I don't think I would have been rapping as, you know, like that belief early on. Like, it's like, yeah, that sparked something in me for sure. Like, he believed in that. And even though at the time people were like, your rhymes are whack, like, they're crap, like, even if they were, like, he's still like, oh, she likes doing that. That keeps her focused. She's not going to disrupt my class.
Yeah.
Like,
absolutely.
Put her there and let her do her thing. And, you know, he was great. Like, and I, you know, I don't see, like, haven't seen him since then, but, you know, shout out to him all the time, you know, because
absolutely.
I think that was massive. That was a massive time in my life. And then, yeah, I ended up going to Father Chris Riley Chapel. Then I was kicked out of school, expelled from Marylands High, and went on to Father Chris Riley and at Chapel there in Marylands, and they had a recording studio there, and that's where I recorded, like, one of my first tracks when I was like 14, and then had it playing all through my school.
Mad.
But it was like talking about loading guns and shooting.
That would have gone down well with Father Chris Riley there. Couldn't imagine him.
Handguns, the dogs are going off.
Oh, that's mad. Hey, I think it's a really important message, but that you say for people that are listening that might be educators, or they might be working with our young people, and they might be to change maybe the perspective of how you look at our kids. When maybe they're in a classroom and they're not fully able to participate or engage, to think a little bit different about how you think about maybe what's happening in the world of those young people that are in those classrooms, and just thinking about what's important right now, you know, and that's engagement and learning and planting them seeds about what's possible, you know. And so I think even just that little message there, so many people will hear this and take so much more away, you know.
That's good. That's like, hopefully, you know, that's the main thing, like we do with Share, and hopefully people take it on and treat younger kids, like treat those, you know, take those lessons on that work for kids and what didn't work, and because our kids are different learners.
Absolutely.
Very visual, very show me how to do it people, you know. And
that's it. And there's like 8 different like ways of learning, and the school system only set up for one way. So if you don't fit into that, you're suddenly a bit of a problem, you know, or a challenge to teach. So I think an example like yours is one that's really important for people to hear. But I remember you was known for rapping when you were 18. That last time I saw you in custody. So like, it obviously started at that young age.
Yeah.
And where did it go from there after Father Chris Riley and all that?
After Father Chris Riley, then we went to, got locked up then.
Yeah.
And then, Darren D-Dun had us all rapping. Used to, eh?
Yeah, we fucking spat some bars. We got all right.
Don't fuck around there. It was like my first experience of rapping, and I remember going, these white vultures are trying to steal our culture. And Darren Dunn, you can't say that. You can't say that. Like, why? It's government, Chloe. It's friggin' juvenile justice, Chloe.
Yeah.
Okay. So we ended up, rapping it, and Sissy Nalinga, Sissy Lydia, them girls from Amy Collins. I don't like her. No.
Sorry, Amy.
You can still get it. Like, but it was, had all those girls and we shouting out our tribe, and then it was deadly because it was the first time I rapped about my culture. Before it was Bloods and Crips and everybody else's culture but my own. Because growing up in southwest Sydney, we grew up in a multicultural place. I think I was like the only black fella in my school, so I took dribs and drabs of other people's cultures because, the school curriculum didn't really teach us. But even though, it took dribs and drabs, but Darren Dunn, it was so funny because it's like, oh, even at status, he taught me dance in high school, and then I see him in he's teaching me dance in high school and how to rap in jail.
Yeah,
and I'm
yeah.
like,
Wild.
yeah, this is a scattered life for a black fella, eh? This uncle does so many things.
Everywhere. Painting footy boots next.
Yeah, with me, mum. Yeah. I'm like, oh, you working with him too, mum? Okay. It's a thing. He's in all the schools. I think Maryland's public school got his artwork as their uniform, which is like, such we've one of few in that community, or in the black fellas there. So he really made that impact, and I think he's big mentor. Yeah, one of my biggest mentors growing up. Darren, and had him started rapping, and that was the first time rapping about culture, and then I just thought, hey, I can rap about myself, and it's just as interesting, and it hits just as hard, if not harder. I
remember listening to that CD on the way back home from Juniperina, because it was they burnt copies for you.
Yeah,
I lifted one
riddled with a whiteboard marker.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and I remember listening to it on the way back home, and I was like, this is it's actually all right. Like, parts of this, that's pretty good.
Spin that back, spin.
Yeah, that's it. But
you're like, know the words off by heart, doing a TikTok. We need to bring it out.
We should find it. It's got to be somewhere.
Surely. I got it at home. I just got I know it scratched the fuck up.
Yeah.
Last time I listened to it was when I got out of jail, 21.
Yeah, true.
Last time I found it, and I was like,
Yeah, wow.
Yeah, it was a spin out time. Yeah, ripping CDs. It was a good rap.
It was.
Talking about our totems, black and talking about being black and deadly, and our families. And I think it was such a,
Did you lose rapping for a bit at different stages?
Yeah.
You had to find it again?
I mean, it was always there. Because I used to be love freestyling. Mm-hmm. I'd get around Blacktown, and, and because I was on ice, at the time, not to it's not romanticized, but things were quicker, I'd be more, it was quicker with life was horrible, let's make that really clear, but things were, the words were coming in my head quicker, so I'd just spit them easier. And I remember I don't think rap's ever left me, but I've had writer's block and stuff, and there's certain times where if I was in relationships that they distract me from what I love, if I found myself in domestic violence, I find I don't write, I'm not creative. When I'm in find myself with bad love in my life. But when I was on ice, I remember I used to freestyle battle or freestyle rap, but to my friends who don't rap. Yeah. My whole, we're driving in the car, and then they'll be like, we got to get on. And then I'd write a rap about, I'd spit a rap about that, and I'd spit, I'd get that scattered. I couldn't stop rapping. Yeah. My friends are like, shut up. Shut up, bro. But I'm just there yo,
Fucking-
we're gonna go to. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, and I do my own editing, so I don't think,
Yeah.
it's ever. Sometimes I wish it would leave.
Yeah, hard.
Yeah.
It's funny because there's a lot of artists, hey, that have dealt with addiction and have like said exactly what you sort of said in some words. Don't want to put words in your mouth, but how words came to your head quicker sometimes.
Yeah.
And you've heard that with many different famous artists over the years in different ways. Ultimately, the impact is more negative than positive. How hard was it to start rapping again clean? Like,
It was.
sort of process, like.
Yeah, it was. When I first realized, like, hey, my writing is. I didn't realize my writing was more powerful than what come off the dome. I didn't realize how much more how much more I can tap into everything if I sit down and focus on it.
Yeah.
It pretty much. I gave up the ice, and then I was trying to I remember I was in jail and I made that there's this rap that I did a remix to Rack City called Black City, and I was spitting it in jail there, and I'm like, oh yeah, because I wrote that pretty off my head,
Yeah.
and I wrote that and the girls loved it, and then I was like, oh, mad, and then
Can you remember the hook?
Black City, Black City. Fellas popping triggers for my titties. Shake a leg, got a white boy doing it. Gubba sit shit, I know who you fucking with.
Let's go. Mad.
Still goes off.
Yeah, I know if it does.
Bars. But it was, all the sisters love that, and I was like, I want to write more. And then I wrote a song about being on ice and how I can't escape it, and just like every time. I try, I can't stop the amphetamines, crack fiend on the street, living a crack fiend's fantasies. And it's just like this whole rap, about I'm going to get out, but I'm going to get back on it. That's what my life's destined for. I might be clean in here, but on the outside, it's waiting for me. And I wrote that, and then I was like, I don't have to, my reality can change if I want it to. I just know it's going to be but I was like, but I didn't think, I never thought at that stage, I never thought rap, I'd be here. To think, even now when people, what do you do for work? And I'm like, I'm a rapper. That sounds so gammon.
Yeah, totally.
People look at me like, that's not a real thing. It is.
It is for me, mate.
Yeah. Just, I'm one of the lucky ones, mate. Nah, but it's like.
Like a 1%er.
Yeah. For us 3%ers, mate.
That's it. That's it.
Oh, that's 6. But no, I think it was it took me a while to realize that, and then I got out of custody, and I was so focused on just getting my little fella back. I had my little fella, gave birth to him in custody, and then that was my main focus. I'm gonna get my kids back and try and stay clean. And then I got that, started doing that, and then I'm like, I'm bored. And I really wanted to do community services, so I did half of my cert free, and I went to go and do the rest of it at TAFE, and things got to me, but and now and then I started just putting my raps out on the internet, and through that I can do community service work through my rap.
I was gonna say exactly that. You still circle back in a way, and that's exactly what you're doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, the impact you're having across our communities through your community service, through your art, is amazing. I want to ask you a question, because I don't know if you're across the platform, but we're on LinkedIn. So because we're we're a business platform and we do a lot of stuff with government and stuff, that's where we are really active, for our company. And I posted up that we got Barkaa coming on the podcast, and I asked, has anyone got any questions that they want to hear? And I've got a couple that are really that I really want to ask you. One, because you just sort of touched on it. So this one is from she's an Aboriginal lawyer with Legal Aid. Her name's Danielle Captain Webb, and she said, I would love to hear Barkaa's perspective of whether we are doing enough to support our sisters who are incarcerated and also have had their babies removed, to 1, keep them connected with their babies during that time in prison, and 2, working towards what happens post-release to ensure we're maintaining that relationship and working towards restoration. So I guess...
I know that our mob are only limited to how much funding they get. I know our mob are only, like, on their side, like, there's only so much mob can do. Even working for the ALS, I know that a lot of our funding gets cut. Government.
Yeah.
You know, and we're like, you know, facts were the ones who agreed to let me have my kid in custody. It was actual Amy Plains, the lady there who was
Like the wardens or...
yeah. And she was like, she was a warden there, and she's like, oh no, like, yeah, I just couldn't get into Jacaranda. And Jacaranda's a place, they got like Emu Plains. So Emu Plains is like a low like minimum security prison, and then they got across the road, they got the mothers jail where the mothers can have all the working prisons. So they got all mums and bubs there, and prisoners who work and get to have day leave and go out and have jobs. And I was being the model prisoner, you know, and that hurt.
Yeah, I bet.
But, you know, I was being like, I just wanted, because my main thing was nothing else matters except my baby. Nothing else matters except that I get to be with my child. Like, my child needs me right now. I need to get it. So I'm like, I'm gonna put my ego aside, my pride aside, and I'm gonna try and show these fellas that, hey, can I have my baby? Like, you know, and I feel like there's so much. Aboriginal women are the most highly incarcerated, you know, people in this whole country, and we got to stop criminalizing addiction. We got to stop criminalizing homelessness. We've got to stop taking, you know, people are so, like, this government's so quick to, you know, we're seeing our children getting removed 3 times higher, at a 3 times higher rate than we did during the stolen generation.
Absolutely.
And that's shocking. That shouldn't happen. When they said sorry means it doesn't happen again. The same black babies that they're ripping off, you know, statistics wise, you know, it's most of those children are removed on the grounds of neglect.
Yeah.
And neglect comes from low socioeconomic
Poverty.
Yeah, poverty. You're then taking them black children and putting them into foster care and giving them foster carers $1,000 more money so they can support this. Why don't you put the money in the families? Why don't you give those, you know, that's where it's like, they're at an advantage. They got money. They can buy that kid food. They can pay rent. They can, you know, like, give that money to the families. I feel like the government, you know, our mob who are working in government are doing everything they can. The problem never lies with mob. It's the government who's cutting funding. It's the government who's taking black children. It's the government who's locking black mothers up and criminalizing poverty. Like, it's not mob.
Yeah.
So, sis, you're doing deadly, and shout out to you. Yeah.
I think you just hit so many nails on the head there, you know, like we were at this forum that I said at the start of our yarn around how to reform the system, and the university presented this report to everyone and quoted the exact stats you just talked off the top of your head. 30% of the kids that are removed, of our black babies, are removed because of neglect. And we know that our families love our children, and it's not because of anything other than that there's extreme poverty and trauma that exists within that household and that world for that family. And if we wrap around the same support that we wrap around carers, then those families might have half a chance to be able to navigate that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And I just thank you so much for being able to sit here as an artist, to share some of your lived experience, but also to be able to just spit exactly what the facts are right now that we're seeing. And, you know, so I think to anybody listening along here that's trying to understand the impact of what's sort of happening when we think about our kids being removed and taken away, we need to start to look at a really significant problem around looking at our families around risk, and move away from thinking about risk and looking at well-being. And what do we need to do around well-being? Because if you think about neglect as risk, you know, you're missing a big part of that picture for our kids and our families.
Yeah.
I think, that, my sister was removed from the block in Redfern with my father when she was 7. Same reasons, neglect, never come home, watered estate, very disconnected from her community in Glebe and Redfern, massive impacts on her identity as she grew up, not knowing where she fits in the world, grew up not too far from where you are. So, probably one of the few black fellas would have been in her school, trying to understand where she fits in the world and all that, and so I often think about the exact power in the words of what you said. For, we get a lot of senior leaders listening to these podcasts that make decisions about what happens in the government sector. You need to listen to the words of powerhouses like Barkaa, who have that lived experience and knowledge in terms of what needs to change in these systems. The system isn't broken, it's doing exactly what it was designed to do. But if good people are in them leadership positions, maybe we have half a chance of impacting the policies that are still taking away our kids.
Yeah. No, big. Thanks, my brother. No, it's like, you see, it's like, and that's from my mum's stolen generation. She was taken simply purely because of the colour of her skin. They have in her doc's reports that, the family was having a big drink up. And mob know. Even if mob have drink up, says Arnie's there like, mate, as a kid growing up, like, there's sometimes where mob will get rowdy, but most of them drink ups, I'd just be getting kissed from Arnie's. And I'd just be like, bro, her breath stinks.
Yeah, totally.
And then you're taking kids away from, like, they were drinking my nan and pop. My mum and my uncles were taken away. And then my mum was sexually abused in care by her foster father. They owed my mum, better care than she would have received at home. That's what they said to her. That's the reason they took her. Because they said that, she's not getting the right thing. And then she goes in to this foster family and gets further abused by a white foster father who sexually molested my mother. And then my mum goes and tells the church, and the priest gets my mother to do 10 Hail Marys and calls her a liar. So it's like you're further, and a lot of there's statistics there that show a lot of our kids are getting abused in institutions. Our kids are getting abused in care. Our kids are getting abused, like the system is constantly doing that,
Absolutely.
So yeah, like you said, we need good mob in there to, like you said, it's not broken. It's doing what it's exactly, what it's designed to do. Like, it's the colony created it.
That's it.
We need to tear it, like, just rework it so we can reform prisoners. We can get families back together.
That's it. I think, and it comes back to what we were yarning about at the start around your brother's experience in Wallama, and this is not in reference to him or anyone specifically, but one thing that we know for people that go in the justice system is there's significant likelihood of experience of childhood abuse, and so we've seen that consistently in all the research that we've done. And so if you don't have systems in place that deal with that trauma, then you're just constantly criminalizing trauma. Criminalizing trauma responses, like you talked about. Don't stop criminalizing addiction and all that sort of stuff. Well, we know that addiction is a symptom of trauma in so many ways for so many people. I think
we need more counsel. I don't think I ever seen a counsellor when I went to adult prison. I seen a Zappo, and they pretty much was like, gave me a free call to me mum.
Yeah.
And told me how it worked, and pretty much put me in the yard, fend for yourself. I feel like you go into these systems, a lot of, like, that's a problem as well, like with the adult system. Last time I was in, there was no education going, there was no classes going because the government cut funding to education in the prison system. It's like, we're already doing time. We're already getting punished by not being with our families. We're already being punished not having access to nice food, not having access to, hot water. We have to where we sleep, it's pretty much like we're already struggling. And then further, you're taking away education, you're giving these prisoners no hope. Like, what do you, like, and you're taking away, like, just basic human rights, like, to an education. It's like, we're still entitled to, we're still human. That's our punishment, taking us away from society. That's punishment enough, You don't have to further, like, you don't have to go
other rights.
Yeah, and they continue to do that. and they continue to get away with it to the point where they're killing us. And it's like, yeah, a system needs a shake-up.
Absolutely. So much of what you talk about now in your storytelling and your music is so informed by the experiences of our communities and our families and what's happened before us. Did you always have that insight, or was that did you have to go on your own journey to understand that sort of impact?
I've always known I'm a dickhead, so I think that's it. I knew when I was acting like a dickhead, so I think that's quite insightful.
Yeah.
I was always a very emotional, sensitive to things around me. So I tend to want to understand. Now that I'm got clean and stuff, like I want to understand my feelings and stuff, like. And I want to have that insight. I want to be accountable. Like, that's how you grow, you know. If I'm not, I'm always constantly, hey, what can I do better? And I think that helps me with the world. I think if you're honest about your own flaws and you're not oblivious to your own mess ups and ups, like you can be quite aware of. If you hold yourself accountable, then you hold the world accountable.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And I feel like I've always had people in my life, like my mum never enabled me. Like my mum, you know, my mum's a very clicked on, switched on, one of the, you know, being biased. No, I'm not. You know, one of the smartest women I know. And, you know, my mum's very, you know, very sober, very like, you don't need that poison. That poison has no drugs in the house, no alcohol in the house. That's a safe house. So I've always had people who weren't in my life as yes men. I had people in my life who have said, you're up, like we're not going to put up with this, like you know. And I think my insight and accountability came from a very dark place, a very lonely place, but I'm like, I can either kill myself or I can grow right now. I'm a grow. I don't want to kill myself. I'm too frightened, you know. But it was like, I don't have the guts to do it, which was a good thing, because it was like, but I do have the guts to try and live. But yeah, I think that accountability came from a very rude awakening of who I was as a person. That accountability come from the fact that it's like, you're a mum, you're a daughter, and that's okay to say. Like, I'm okay to, like, because that's, you know, I was a person and I don't want to be that person. So I think, it come from a very rude awakening of, hey, face.
What about with, you know, you rap about so much of our people's struggles and our histories. You know, you talked about your mum's experience being stolen, the impacts of that on our, you know, generations moving down. I've heard you talk about you know, healing. I've watched the languages stuff you've done recently, talking about the power of that with your daughter and your mother and you, talking about the healing impact of reclaiming language and stuff like that. So like, there's all these different elements that you rap about that's so powerful. Did you grow up knowing a lot of that sort of, like, for example, the stories of your mother's experience as a child? Were those stories you grew up with? Because we know some of our families don't talk about that stuff as well.
Yeah, I grew up with mum. You know, because mum was the coordinator of Ringabaya, which was one of the first Aboriginal domestic violence organisations opened in Sydney on Gadigal. So mum was very, you know, very righteous, very talking about like mum, very political woman. Like, we grew up in a time where I didn't grow up with much culture, and I'll be honest, like that was like because mum was stolen. Like, I didn't get that. I wasn't granted that. So I grew up in a time where I learned about everything wrong they done to our people, everything wrong with the government. I grew up with the political side of being black, you know. I grew up in the concrete jungle, you know. So it was like, those stories were sad stories growing up. Who we were, but it's like, and our mob always kept connected and culture was always there, but it's just that it was, you know, like stripped away. So those stories Those stories were, hey, my mum, like as a little kid, I went to school, my mum's stolen generation. We had a sad life. My life's sad. And I know mum didn't mean for that to come across, because now I look at it and think, oh, like she's so strong. I wouldn't be where I am without her for everything she's fought for. It's not a sad story. It's quite an amazing, empowered, incredible story of who she is now. But I grew up in a very like, yeah, we got a sad story. Like I got a sad life.
Yeah.
The world's against me. I don't know. Yeah.
It's funny, hey, I think about my father when you talk about that sort of stuff, and I think about what happened to him when he was a kid, you know, and he's calling me right now as I talk, so I must, you know. Maybe he's going, hey, don't say my name on the podcast. You know, he had a really hard life, and he went through some of the most traumatic things, you know, similar to what your mother's probably been through. And I used to have that same narrative in my head, you know, and then as I got older, I actually realized how much stronger he was because of what he'd been through to be able to function as he was, you know, growing up. And he wasn't perfect by any means, but when I think about his story and our family's story, I think about actually he's probably one of the most strongest fathers I know, you know. And yeah, he wasn't perfect. You can't hate him for it. You got to find the strength in that experience to move forward.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, it rings so true, eh? Like you look at, because there's time even going through addiction. Like I everything. It was so easy for me to blame my mom, and to be like, hey, you're an adult. Maybe you know, and you do, like you grow older and you're like, your parents are gonna be flawed. As a mother, I know I'm hella flawed, you know, and I love that. It's like, but the things it doesn't take away from, yeah, like how you said, how they survived through war, you know, pretty much like how they didn't drink themselves to death afterwards, or how my mum still kept us and then took us, you know, kingship of my kids. Like it's pretty our old people. I wouldn't say old people. My mum would drill me if I young one. But you know, like our uncles, our mum, like our parents, our older people, like our elders and that. I forgot what I said because I'm trying to like put out the fire for calling me mum.
Yeah, I think we were just ending our last bit about the impact of stolen generations for our communities still today.
Yeah.
I think I spent a bit of time when I was working in government in Aboriginal affairs. I had to sit in the room with our old people when they got their reparations payments, and they had to tell their story about what had happened, and then the lawyers there would have to negotiate what the payouts would be. And I remember I could only do I think I did about 8 of them, and I had to travel around the country sitting with our old people. And the stories that we heard, the horror, you know, is something that anyone listening here is like, it's the stuff that can be the most unimaginable that our old people have had to live through, you know. And I think people don't realize that, like, we're talking about your mother, you know, my grandfather. We're talking about generations that are being impacted by forced child removal and have been through the most, you know, horrible of things. But old Bajura Court, they used to take.
That's where Mum was taken. Yeah.
And like me and Maddie were from Glebe, and so we walked past there all the time. We never realised till we were older that was where they used to take, you know, a lot of the kids and stuff. And we'd hear even some of the most sorry stories about like brothers and sisters being taken there. And then I remember one old aunt told me, like, you know, I saw my brother walk past the fence going to school and I never seen him again, you know. Or down the coast, you know, we'd have stories from our old people where they'd say, you know, I was in there with family, cousins, and I didn't even know that they were my cousins until other kids from outside of those homes that knew, because families were talking from Lapa or from wherever that were making those connections, and were giving us that information in those places.
Yeah.
And so when we talk about healing and what healing looks like, I want to ask you some questions around that. I can imagine music's been very therapeutic in some ways, but what's your healing journey been like?
It's been probably one of the roughest journeys I've ever been on.
Not a straight line, eh?
Nah, drugs was easier. Jokes you mum, I'm joking. It gets better. It gets easier. I think it's only but it only works if you work it. The program only works if you work it. That's like I think being in the rooms early in my I don't go to rooms as much as I should now. And there's some and I've had lapses in between and with the grog and stuff and yarns and that. And at the start, it was like, oh, I got all these crazy emotions. Like I'm coming down. I'm really sensitive to things. And I'm facing my problems. Like I don't have anything to hide from it. I don't have ice to lean on to kind of be like, I don't want to deal with that. Let me just fog out or, and certain, like after a while, the drugs just don't work anymore. You got to address that trauma or them drugs are going to, every time you get high, it's not going to be a high, it's going to be a low. And I feel like the rooms really helped me in my healing journey at culture. Culture, I feel like is the main thing. You start connecting back to culture, it will give you purpose straight away. Because when you're learning culture, like it's different to learning like learning a trade or something, because sometimes when you can't pick up something straight away, you feel stupid. But whenever you learn in culture, you never ever feel that. You never feel dumb. So culture was something that was really a really big thing that kept me strong and kept me having purpose. Music. Just keeping busy. You got to be busy.
I heard you say something about because you're an ambassador for the Aboriginal Languages Trust.
Yeah. And
they're doing a whole lot of work around supporting our communities to revitalise our languages. So, big honour to get called up to be the face for that.
Yeah. Some of the the best work I've ever done, I reckon, doing this languages stuff was some of the most meaningful.
Yeah, I heard you talk about the impact of revitalizing language and it being so critical to healing and stuff for you and for your family. But how could you explain what that means for like people that might be listening to this? That
like language, people might be, it's like, because it's so impactful to our healing, it's not just like, it's not me learning Spanish or me learning Spanish or Mandarin. Like I'm learning a language that we weren't allowed to speak, a language that wasn't killed off but was kind of put to sleep, and wasn't it was something, it was a punishment, If you wanted to live if you wanted food, water, if you wanted to survive, you had to pretty much sign a little document, simulation papers, and you'd have to sign them, and that said, you can't practice culture. You got to do what white men do. You got to conform. You got to assimilate. So if we wanted our kids to go to school or our kids to have an education, our kids to have a roof over their heads, we can't speak language. And I think it's healing, but it's also, we're handling it with a lot of care. A lot of politics around language too, which is funny. Like I never thought it would be, but there is a lot of politics, and I think black fellas, good on yous.
out your way too, eh? Because there's a lot of different dialects and boundaries and different things like that.
People
I think,
and certain families that hold it but don't want to like that, which is like there's families that are holding it and families even like blood that are fighting to share it and blood that are fighting to keep it. And I get both sides, because the mob who are fighting to keep it, like it's like, look, they took it from us before.
So much has been taken already. You can understand why we want to keep what we've got safe.
Because it's like, it's so healing learning language, but it's like it's so much more than learning Spanish, because it's like, with apartheid in like.
I thought you don't speak Spanish.
Oh, my daughter's learning Spanish at high school. Buenas noches. It means popcorn. No, it doesn't. It means good.
Don't
I
they
don't know
all?
what
Don't
it
they all
means.
call you mummy?
Yeah. Nah. Yeah, I was on stage the other day and I'm like, I'm crying over Buddha with this. And I'm like, guys, I have to admit something. I have cried over broke Buddhas. I don't think any of the Buddhas I've been with have had money. I've always been the Buddha with the money. Even on my Centrelink.
Hey, go, mad.
I want him to call me daddy.
Hey, look out. Let's go. That's it.
Next track, Big Daddy Barks.
That's it. Big Bark Wana. Fuck up.
Wana. Got into my head. Triggered something in me. But I think language, like going on my, like language just sounds better. Like if I say, like, Nai, I'm a Malcolm Gumpa Bark and Jinyunku, like I'd rather say that, hey, or hey, I'm Chloe. I'd rather say, you know, and I think language just sounds stronger and it makes you stronger because you're reviving it, and it's ancient. It's ancient. And you speak that, you're speaking the same language that, like, I'm speaking the same language Mungo Man spoke.
That's
and
it.
you know, it gives you a God complex when you got your culture.
100%. I worked on the start of the Aboriginal Languages Trust. So when they first got made, and me and some other fellows were working on how it was going to be built as an organisation. And it's funny because I guess I'm going to ask you about trauma in language as well, because when we were doing that work, because so much of our work in community, right, is always from a deficits lens. It's always about, you know, our communities dealing with poverty or addiction or mental health or whatever's going on. And so when we started doing this languages trust work, we all got really excited because we were like, oh, finally, this is something it's only positive. It's about our languages. It's about bringing our languages back and supporting our communities. But one thing we started to realize is that a lot of us started to get very triggered working, even though we were working on revitalizing language, we started to get really triggered because we realized how much had been taken away and the impact. We started to really connect the dots in terms of the impact that had for our families and for us today. And so I think one thing a lot of people don't understand, and for people listening now, is that, like, yeah, and you sort of touched on it a bit, like language revitalization is amazing and it's so powerful. But I think you used the words you do have to tread carefully, because for many of our old people, for many of our communities, it can be a really sensitive journey as well. And so I think, but no questions asked whatsoever in terms of the power of language and culture for our healing. 100%.
Yeah.
100%.
Once you got it, it's just it's a hassle getting there, or it's a bit, you know, it's hard getting there. I mean, a lot of you know, my mum talks about, like, when she got back home and she had my auntie Dawn and my other nana in the room, you know, like, and both my nanas are in the room and they're speaking lingo, but they would never speak it to the family because they didn't want to teach it to the kids just in case the kids get taken again, you know. And it's like, that's the, you know, and those aunties are still alive and well, that where these policies, my mum's still alive, these where, you know, that mum was speaking language, they called her ooga booger and, you know, told her not to speak that again, you know. You speak English, we speak proper, we're civilized, you know. And then you grow up and you realize English is the most bastardized language, the most uncivilized language there is. Like,
totally.
It's like it's scattered. This language is scattered, you know,
Absolutely.
and bastardized off everybody else. Like, I guess the English culture.
Totally.
Yeah, full circle stuff for them too. But it's, you know, it's yeah, it's something that you hold carefully. But once you got it, it's just, and it's so fun learning language. Even the pronunciations we pronounce. I was sitting there with Aunt and she'd go, "Nya," and I'm like, "Nya," I mean, "Nya," "Nya." I'm fucking doing that. You know, you're getting real wild.
Yeah.
I'm doing that, but and it's so fun because you're like those little bits where you're just giggling, or you say, you learn the swear words first, you know, or the bad words.
Always.
Yeah.
That's it. It's mad. Oh, well, next time we have you on the podcast, we'll be hearing some more language, eh?
Yeah, you rattle off in yours, I'll rattle off. We might pick up similar.
Yeah. Well, that's it. They reckon that there's there are a lot of similarities or shared words, you know, across different language groups, particularly, you know, because we don't know what boundaries look like. We didn't have like a map with fucking drawn boundaries. So, yeah, exactly. So
You stay there.
yeah, that's it. So we do see similarities, you know, across different dialects and language groups. But I want to ask you something else about healing, because I was watching one of your stories this morning on your page, and you talked about how you were at a gig recently, and you got a bit triggered because you seen one of the sisters there from back in the day, who, you know, hadn't managed to navigate that cycle as much as you have. And I wanted to ask you about that because that brought up some stuff for me too. But yeah, what's that? How hard is that when you're going on your own healing journey, and you sort of see people from that old world still stuck there?
Breaks your heart because they're like, you know, that's my sister girl. I wanted all of us to get out, and we're so close, innit? You know, looked out for each other. You know, robbed a lot of dealers together. So, you know, it was, you know, like seeing my sister, and I'm just like, at first I was like, go my sis, yeah, I'm proud of you, Chloe. And at first I'm like, because she's swearing, and I'm like, you know, I got triggered because I'm like, oh, sissy, like, I can't. And I'm trying to perform, and I had a lot on my mind, and then sissy's, and I had to like humble my, like, you know, and be like, this is the most realist thing anybody could do for you. Like, this is what it's all about. Your sister's coming to hear the word. You wrote these songs for you, and those, like, that's who inspired you. They're the sisters who everything's inspired off. The sisters I was down and out with, you know, and I was just like, wow, sis, like, you got so much going on. The last thing in my, like, I know how addiction is. I just want to get on. I just want to feed my addiction. Sis actually took the time out of the chaos. Like, hers is way more chaotic than mine. I know how crazy that life is. Sis actually made time to show love and actually have some sort of normality in that life, you know, and to actually come and say, hey, sissy, I'm proud of you. We might not be using together anymore, but I'm so fucking happy for you, and I'm going to show up. And I fucking love her. Those girls are realer than some of the friends I come across straight, you know?
100%.
And I fucking love her. And I think that meant more to me than having a full, like, performing to 30,000 people. If I can perform Never Sisters that I went through it with, that would be a dream come true. If I can just pour that love into them. But that healed me, having her there. That healed me a little bit.
It's a part of that healing journey, 100%.
Yeah. And it's like I was singing for my titters and looking straight at her, you know? Telling her she's too good to sell her soul for a couple of G's, and she knows that. She's just fucking stubborn. I think that's a lot of our mob. Yeah. Just stubborn, you know? Even me, my mum, got to get clean. You know, Mum, I heard of this 50-year-old guy that you never get clean.
Yeah, totally.
Because he told me this 50-year-old guy that has no family. Like, of course he's not going to get clean. Yeah. Bless him. I hope he... Shout out Jimmy.
Totally. Do you ever feel... Because, you know, I grew up in Glebe. Both my parents dealt with addiction. I lived in out-of-home care, foster care placements. And a lot of my friends I grew up with... spent a lot of time in and out of prison, dealt with addiction and different things like that. And some of them are still stuck there. Do you ever feel like imposter syndrome or guilt when you're doing so well? Because sometimes I feel that and I look back to where I come from, and it's almost like you feel like you're leaving people behind, you know?
You do, and you don't want to be that person, because then it's like, I mean, I've been copping it. I mean, there's certain, like, and it comes back to that, a lot of our mob, that's an issue with our mob, the word big noter. Settle down, you big noting yourself. You talk like a white fella. If you know, we hear that a lot. If you talk about mob who talk intellectually or have an education, you talk white. And it's that, it's like, no, like, don't say that. Like, I feel like you do have imposter syndrome, but that's a lot to do with the lateral violence that comes within. I mean, that's a product of colonization. It's a product of, you know, assimilation and stuff, but it's like that tall poppy syndrome where it's like mob can get to a certain part, but we're going to pull you back down. And I think I've been copping that a lot. You know, you get to a certain thing and certain people, you know, call you a sellout. I've copped it, and I was like, I said, I'm going to come into this. I'll never get called a sellout. Yeah, I come from prison. I come from addiction. Can I get called a sellout because I voted yes? I'm like, hey. I don't think that doesn't count, dickheads.
Yeah, totally.
Like, I'm voting yes for you. It's like, not voting yes. I was like, yes, put us in the Constitution and take our culture.
Yeah, totally.
Get real, you know? And I think, yeah, you do get imposter syndrome where you're like, you do feel guilty because you're like, hey, do I deserve this? And it is. I'm always constantly, but we're allowed to believe, like, we're allowed to be great. And I feel like we're going to break that barrier more. We're going to see more Black excellence and stuff. We can own it, or we can own the organizations. We can be CEOs. We can own the country. We can buy back land, and we can build intergenerational wealth, and culture adapts, shapes and moves all the time. That's the reason why we have a 65,000-year-old culture. It didn't always stay the same.
Absolutely.
That's why it's the oldest living, like, it's still alive, because it adapts and moves. White fellas aren't the only ones who are entitled to modernity. We're entitled to, we're entitled to adapt, to evolve as a people. So, saying that, just because we can change it, we can build our own tables, with parts we steal from colonizers, because colonizers stole it from everybody else.
Yeah,
so, steal it back, claim it back.
Totally. No, you're right, but especially that point around a lot of people think about our culture as ancient, but they don't realize, like, exactly what you said, like, culture adapts and it grows, and how else has it survived 65,000 years? Like, and it's the same thing today with, like, people talking about boundaries or language words or different things like that, and fighting about how it used to be, or how it could have, how it should be, or could have been, or would have been, whatever it is. But we often get stuck in them conversations of how it was in the past, as opposed to understanding that culture is living. It's not, it might have been sleeping for a period of time or different things like that, but it's growing. And as we grow with it, it continues to grow across our families and our communities.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. I think it's such a white lens to say that it stopped. It's such a white lens to keep it in the same place and keep it stuck, because it's them saying, you didn't even, in about 65,000 years, or you bit, like, we hear it all the time. It's like, guys, I think, then you read Dark Emu and you're like,
Yeah, that's it.
And, it's like, it's such a white lens to be like, no, that stays stuck. You don't grow from there. That's uncivil. Like, it's like, no, we do grow and adapt and change. Like, and it's always been like that. We've seen that with trading, like, we've seen that with, where we get Afghan blood or that Indonesian Muslim blood in us, because the Macassans used to trade. And it's like, I'm sure culture would too, it's always adapting and changing.
Totally.
Culture's us.
Absolutely.
We are culture.
Absolutely.
So, also, like, we went to, like, down to Palawa, recently, and met them mob and, Lucha Widow mob, and we went down there, and them mob, because, we grew up in a time where there's no Palawa mob, like Trajanini was the last one, and we find out later this, deadly
Yeah.
staunch mob,
Absolutely.
you know, and
Absolutely.
got to spend time with these mob, and they're talking about like their languages, they're grabbing bits because, you know, but they're reviving and creating a new language.
Yep.
But it's like, that's cool.
Absolutely.
And that's create and adapt and move in culture.
That's it. And that, yeah, exactly right. And I think what's happening down there is also, you know, what's happening across different parts of New South Wales too, with different language groups where we've worked with what we had, and, you know, we've worked with other language groups closely connected to us and identified similarities or different ways that we can start to build back, you know, what was taken from us. You know, I think so much power down there. So mad.
Oh, you could feel it there.
Yeah.
You could feel that sadness, but them mom.
Yeah,
Shout out. I think Sister Danny wasn't wrong when she said strongest mob.
Bless.
Them corroboree scared me a little.
Yeah, really. There you
It
go.
was so deadly.
Mad.
But yeah.
Mad. Yeah, I wanted to ask you about that healing stuff because when I watched that video about you talking about Sister Girl at your performance, it reminded me of when we were doing interviews recently for a project we were on, and we had to go into the cells at the Downing Centre Court, and we had to do the interviews in the little phone boxes there. If you've ever sat in there, you know the space. Not a lot, it's about as wide as where we're at today. And I got the list, and I looked on the name. You're always going to see someone. If you're a black fella working in this space, you're always going to recognise a name somewhere at some time. But one of the names on there was one of these lads. And when we were 12 years old, he was just like, yeah, there's this junkie that lives here and he's always on the nod. Let's go in and see if we can find anything cool. And I'm like, for me, it wasn't a crime, you know. I was just like, oh, well,
he wouldn't have got nothing.
He's asleep. You know what we did get? It's like all them housing houses in Glebe. Every lounge room looks the same. It's got a little mantelpiece that's glued to the wall. Anyone from Glebe would know, or most houses would know, that it's got a little mantelpiece that's just glued there. And I always remember it because I was 12 years old and I took this little, like the portable clocks.
Oh.
They're like a little square. They're so small. But I remember seeing it and I was like, oh, I'm going to take that clock. And I took it. And anyway, that was my first thing I ever done when I look back and was like, well, that was actually pretty heavy if I got picked up, you know, as a kid. But the saddest part is that young lad that I did that with, here he is 25 years later, sitting in the cell, sitting beside me just like you are now. And I walked in and he just disappeared, you know. After 12 years old, he was always in and out of jail, like juvie and then jail. And he'd see him for a little bit and he was gone again. And last time I saw him, I was 20 at this hotel, and there was a fight and someone came up to me and goes, hey, do you know old mate, he's trying to give this little kid a hiding? And I was like, yeah, I wouldn't for him because he's a bit wild. But anyway, that was the last time I seen him. 17 years later, I'm sitting aside from him like this with you, and he sits in there, and I walk in and I was like, hey bro, I was like, I'm Sam from Glebe, do you remember who I am? And he looked at me and he was like, oh, he paused for a second and he goes, did you have cancer when you was a kid? I was like, yeah, bro, I did. He goes, oh, and he's like, was like tears coming up in his eyes, and he's like, bro, he's like, fuck, look at you, you look so good. Look how fucking big you are. He's like, oh, fuck, I love you, my brother. Like, fuck, it's so good to see you. And anyway, we had a big yarn about how things going and all that, and he's in a really good place at the moment. But I just kept thinking back about, like, when I saw that story of you talking about Sis, and you think about how you can start in the same place as someone and then your paths go in different directions. You do sometimes, when you're someone who cares about your community and your people and you've started with them, you almost have this element of pain because you can't bring them along with you, you know. And I think what you're doing is so powerful. And I said it at the start because for so many people that are stuck in those worlds and in those experiences, you know, you provide the light that gives people an understanding that, you know, there are people out here that are breaking these cycles and forging new paths. And I just wanted to really just come back to that because I just think it's so powerful, and it really hit home for me with that experience with my friend, as well. And I'm sure that it's not the first time that you've experienced it. I'm sure it won't be the last time too, but like your power to continue to stand in this space is liberating so much of our people that we will never even know about. Like you will never know about so many of these sister girls or whoever they are that follow you and listen to your music or follow your journey that you've given so much power to. You'll never know their names or see their faces, but I'd bet my life on it that there's, you know, countless of them out there.
It spins me out. Like, I just like thought it was so beautiful. Look how big you are now, bro.
Yeah.
They sound like proud aunties when you run into your mates you used to get it up to bad with. Eh?
Yeah.
But even in a dark space, how he just wanted to like, I'm so proud of you. Like,
yeah,
how loving our mob are.
that's it.
Even when they're at their lowest, they hate. They got, you know, that love that they don't have for themselves. It's like super, you know, like like when, you know, I get charged. Like when you get mobbed, I get charged. I love you. I love you. I love.
Yeah.
You know, and you're like, you can never hear that enough. You can never hear I love you, I'm proud of you enough. We can show our mob that it's possible because it's told to us it's not. You know, our generation and generations before, like, good on representation now, but we didn't see that growing up. A lot of the things that we've seen about our people were very negative and in the news is negative. Our fathers were sexual abusers. You know, our parents were alcoholics, our mothers were neglectful and whores and, you know, and everything. We can either be, hey, you can run good, you can do sports, even then we won't love you. We'll still probably, you know, shout out brother Latrell, you know?
That's it.
And it's like, we see that and it's like, we got to be that change. You got to be it to see it. And thank God little black kids dream.
Yeah, that's it.
Because we wouldn't have seen it, you know. So I'm really, you know, like, it's funny, you know, like I don't, it's a funny thing to hold that, like, role model. It's always a funny thing when people are like, how do you feel being a role model? Because I don't think I'm a role model. Yeah. And I'll say that till I die. Like, I'm the example of probably what not to do. And I hope that I'm an example of, or an example of just like, I'm just every other black woman. I'm every other sister girl. I'm just speaking for yous. Like, I'm just a mouthpiece for yous. I'm not any better than yous. I'm still like, I'm not your hero. Your family, your mother is, you know, like you know, the people who are in your life every single day.
Absolutely.
They're lifting you up and, you know, wanting you to get better and actually backing you. But yeah, it's a hard one to be like, you know, it's a hard, like, to take on that responsibility. It's an honor, but it's heavy.
It's heavy. 100%.
Because I don't know if I can, you know, because a lot of people will be like, hey, we go to Sister Barkaa for this, go to Sister Barkaa for that. And I'm like, hey guys, I'm traumatized. I don't know. I'm
still healing. Yeah. I'm still healing.
Because I'm overwhelmed.
Totally.
My cup is empty. I'm not going to answer my phone for fucking 2 years.
That's it. Well, we know. We tried to get you on here for almost 12 months.
Just like see the notification pop up. I've been meaning to. I'm like, what can I talk? If you got me any earlier, it would have been a whole different year.
Yeah, totally. But you know, like, I think the most important point though is that, like, we've talked about systems and policies. You know, whether it's the system and the policies right now, whether it's what happened to our families in the past. You know, those systems and policies of the colony were designed to put you exactly where you found yourself for a long time. That's how the system was built. Yeah. And it was working. And so your existence is resistance. You know, the mere fact that you exist is resistance and hope for all of our people in terms of navigating the impacts of, you know, surviving the colony. And so looking to the future and where to from here, it's exciting time. You got some new music dropping in November. coming up in 8 days, I think you said.
Yeah, 8 days.
What's that? Can you talk to us a little bit? How long's it been since you last dropped something?
Oh, a minute since NBA 2K. I think we did like a little thing.
Oh, yeah.
For basketball.
Yeah, that was mad.
Yeah. God, I was sweating in that friggin' fur jacket though. Big girl then. Put big girl in a fur coat like that. Game over, mate. Creases. God, that's traumatizing. But it was since then, like, I haven't released anything. I kind of had a little bit of writer's block at last year. I had a lapse, you know. So I just had writer's block and like you know, one of those relationships where it was just like soul sucking and distracting me from where I needed to be. So
totally.
And then this year I just been writing. Just can't stop writing. And I wrote this track before the referendum and before I, like, you know, and it's just like, you know, facts. Like I pretty much, you know, breaking down statistics in it, throwing, you know, putting the mirror back, and just like, it's not a nice song. It's pretty divisive. But I feel like it just reigns true to I feel like that's the anthem of this country's division, you know, right now. So, but it's real. And I didn't stutter.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's powerful, and you gave us a sneak peek. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that, but I can cut it if you need to. But
I'll show up. Hey, you just want to see my video clip of me at the fucking station with a fucking old mate? I don't even know him. I just grabbed a ciggy off him. Jokes, I'm still off the ciggies, guys.
But one of the things I asked you, because it's called Division,
yeah,
and it spits a lot of facts about the impacts of what the reality is like for our people in this country. And I asked you, you know, because for anyone listening, you know, the referendum outcome wasn't very long ago here in Australia, and I asked you, I said, "Oh, when did you write this? Did you just write this recently?" And you said, "No, I wrote this before that." So can you talk to us a little bit about the motivation for it, the timing of it, all that sort of thinking?
Yeah, I wrote Division, and I just wrote it because I was like, you know, I was going on this different journey with my music where I was like, hey, I'm just writing more positive stuff. It's more personal stuff. I'm doing great in life. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about manifesting. Let's talk about fruition. Let's talk about all these great things. And then I'm like, nah, I need to write something gritty. And it's all straight bars. Like there's no hook or anything in Division. Like it's just all, you know, straight facts, straight bars. And I needed it to get it off my chest, and then I'm just rapping it a cappella to my brother and to my mother, and they're crying, and I'm like, oh, you know, this is hitting. And because I cried when I was writing it, like, you know, and it just come out, it just happened, and I haven't written like that for a while. So, but the yes come through, and you know, and we did the yes concert. Yeah. And I performed that song.
Oh, did ya?
Yeah.
Holy.
And JT's like, why the heck would you perform Division at a yes concert? They gotta know.
Yeah, that's it.
Like,
that's it.
Yes is just this tip. It's not even like
it's the tip
we
of the
got
iceberg.
work
That's
to do.
it.
Yeah, but yeah. And I wasn't going to release it straight. I wouldn't have put it on this new project. It wouldn't have been a part of. I might have put it on the back burner for a bit because not that we were going to. It would have been like, oh, hey. I mean, I don't do reconciliation stuff. It's not my job.
Yeah.
I'm the black fella.
Yeah.
You reconcile, like, you fix
that's
it.
You do the work.
Yeah. So, you know, I seen it as like, even though I don't believe, but it was a part where it was like, oh, if most of the nation is standing with us and allyship's and solidarity is strong in this country, maybe I can be happy. Maybe I can, maybe the fight that my elders fought, the colony's listening.
Yeah, totally.
It's the same old song. And I just feel like, yeah, I was like, after that, I'm just like, I don't care anymore. I don't have to filter anything. I'm going to, like, I went back to Division. We made the beat. boom bap and creepier, and we revisited it and we added some more, you know, more lyrics and stuff, and I put language in at the end where I'm, you know, calling on my, like, that's my ancestral power, like, and I feel that, and you know, I'm like, they didn't stop anything. If anything, they made us louder. So yeah, the voice that they're left with, it's the one they're gonna have to deal with.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. What do you hope people get out of this?
I don't know if I'm a riot.
Let's go. All right.
We're not soundtracking protests, we're soundtracking riots now.
Yeah, that's it.
No, I don't know what I feel like black fellas will feel, yeah, tell them.
Yeah.
And then it's gonna piss people off. I know it's gonna. But found a new addiction, and it's white tears.
Tasty.
Let's snort them. Nah, jokes.
Mad. Like, I think, you know, you've for as long as I've been following you, you've never been someone that's shied away from the reality of the black experience in this country, and I think staying staunch in where you're at, you know, is testament to you as an artist and as a person. I think I'm excited to hear some of the stuff about you know, manifesting and growing and all that other stuff as well that you were talking about, because I guess that's one thing we love as artists too. We love to watch them grow as well, but that doesn't take away any power from any of the significance of division and for my titters and everything else that's come along the way as well. It has been a big year for you with personal growth and all that sort of stuff. Do you want to reflect on the year that's been in the lead up to this sort of stuff, and what some of the biggest sort of things have been for you in terms of growing? And
it's been a massive growth year. Like, I feel like I'm an adult. Like, I can finally say, hey, you're a woman now. I walked away from a relationship last year where I thought I've never really been the one. It's gotten to a point where I'm like, I gotta walk away, or like police are involved or something like that. But I'm like, I kind of got to a point last year where I actually walked away and was like, hey, I'm worth more than this. I don't like the way you treat me, love, but I'm gonna go this way. And you know, that was a massive thing for me, because that was a realization of how empowered I am. Like, things, I value my worth more.
Totally.
And, you know, and I walked away from that, and I promised myself, hey, like I said to myself, because there's little things where, you know, I'll think, oh, no, it's fine. I won't pull it up because it's nothing. But it will irritate me, and I'll let it go, and I'll just be like, oh, it's not a big deal. But I said to myself, even if it's so small, just pull it up and like say, hey, I don't like this, or hey, can we try this, or, you know, because it's like, I promised myself I would have my hands on my work this year. I'd have my hands on my business, because I'm not just a rapper. I'm a businesswoman now. I'm a businesswoman. Barkaa's a brand now.
Absolutely.
So I need and this is a thing that's putting the food on the table for my kids. You know, so I wanted my hands on my business. I started telling people, you know, pulling people up on things where it was like, hey, this is not okay. And, you know, I started pulling people up around like, you know, just not letting people take my kindness for weakness, or not letting being too kind, like where to the fact where it's like, don't heal too much from the woman who kept you safe. Yeah. Don't heal too much from that woman who was on drugs because she was a survivor.
Bring her out from time to time.
Yeah. And I feel like, and by me doing that, I'm saying I love you to her, and saying that like you're still valid and that we can heal together, and, you know, and I think nobody gets to use me anymore. Nobody gets to use me for. Nobody gets to profit off my pain anymore. Nobody gets to profit off my trauma. So if I see that you're half-assing me, or trying to pull the wool over my eyes, or trying to treat me like I'm stupid, you're gone, you're sacked, you're cut. Yeah, and I think that's okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. and a real coming of age personally and professionally to step into that.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because I feel like you can't people please your way through life. Like,
No.
you won't get where you need to be. And with my criminal record, the only thing that's working for me is my rap. I want to kill it at this. I want to give it the best chance it's got. And it's like, if it's business now, like everything's business now. And I got to see it as like, you know, although I'd love to have a workplace family, I got a family at home.
Yeah.
My kids are at home.
That's it.
This business, you know, and yeah, I feel like if we start calling workplaces families, that leaves it open to toxic workplaces. Like, hey, you didn't pay me, but I'm your cousin. No, you're not.
Totally.
You know, and I just feel like, I'm embracing who I was before, like, you know, embracing, hey, that girl who got off drugs and got off ice, she's fucking strong. Like, she's empowered. You might look back at her and think at the start of early recovery, like I look back at her and think, fuck, she's so disempowered. She's a beast even then, you know? So it's like, you can't fuck with somebody who comes back from that.
And that's what I remember when I remember you in Greens at 17, 18 years old, is that like, despite where you were, you still had so much power in you, you know? I think exactly right.
Little green hole.
It's true, but
super prisoner, super inmate.
Yeah, it's true. It's true though. Like,
how many things can you box?
Yeah.
Joke.
But not really, nah.
I mean, it's a fucking pocket, a prison pocket at this point.
Hey, that's it. No, it's yeah. I think you're right. Like, we're the same in business, you know. Like, sometimes I sit in spaces and I just think about, like, there's no one here sitting at this table that has any idea of the world that I've seen, or my people have seen, and they better start talking to me with some fucking respect for that, or else they're going to see a different side of how we're going to have these conversations, and they might be a little bit more blunt, or they might be a little bit more abrupt, or you might see a different style to how that's communicated. Because I think you're right. Like, we have to learn how to walk in two worlds as blackfellas, as survivors, as mob that are healing and trying to build businesses and brands and grow our reputation, you know. But I think you say a lot, something really powerful about, I think about it in two ways. There's like that saying about, like, you know, you need to be who you needed when you was younger. I remember when I saw that on, like, I got really really triggered me when I saw that on socials once. It was like a little meme. And I was like, it's so true, you know, I'm exactly what I needed when I was a little boy. But then sometimes I think, like, I still need that. I still need parts of him with me now, you know, to keep me guided with where I need to go. You know, sounds like it's the same with you too, eh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I love you, my brother. Like, I'm just so happy that you're in these spaces and that you're shaking them, because, you know, and I'm so thankful for everything that you've done and for being there for me.
No, thank you.
To then to now, you know?
Yeah.
It's like just an honor being in these spaces, because it's like, you know, we might be in a different, but we're still, you know, when you talk about we might have to tell them a different way, it's like we still get wild.
Yeah.
We're still from the streets.
Yeah, that's it. That's it.
But it is like, you know, you just sat, I know exactly what, we need to get off Facebook and we need to stop reading these little emotions. But it's that, I shared that same status where you know, you are now who you are, or who you needed when you were little. Yeah. And that's also, there's other one that comes up a lot, you know, even like the sayings that if you baby the attic, you'll bury the attic. Like, that was a big one for, like, because it was like, you know, my mum gave me such tough love and I never understood it. I was like, she hates me. I'm a baby. Why won't she love me?
Yeah.
Picking the skin.
Totally.
Why don't you love me, Mum? I'm itchy for you, Mum. And it's like, I look back and I think that if you baby the attic, you'll bury the attic. And I think that's so true. And that, all this trauma ran through my family until it ran into me. And I love that saying. That's not me, that's my daughter though. Like, you know?
Yeah. And I think about that too, right? Like I think about, yeah, that healing journey that I'm on, it's not my journey. I'm not, you know, I might never be healed. You might never be healed, you know, but the work that we're doing is mean that our kids don't have to do that. They don't have to carry that same weight of healing. You know, they might have their own journeys or traumas they've got to navigate. Yeah. But the work that, when I started to realize that, you know, I started to realize that everything I'm doing, whether it's trying to build wealth for our family or healing or whatever it is, I started to accept that, like, that's okay if I don't do it for me in my generation. That's all right if we're not millionaires and own a house or do whatever, or that's okay if I never really get healed, because my kids are now 10 steps ahead than where I was when I started, you know, and then my grandkids, that's going to be a far distant memory of any of that weight that they'll have to carry anymore. And hopefully it's just the stories of resilience and strength that they're carrying moving forward. And I think that's the foresight we've got to have, you know, it's for our babies. Yeah.
It's a big fuel for us as mom. Reminds me of back when I was in rehab and they're like, oh, you got to get clean for you. It's like most of us like don't have, like, for us, like, it's not us. For us black fellas, it's like, it's bigger than us, and it's always going to be bigger than us. We don't act from ego. We don't act from a selfish place. We act from I mean, it can be our biggest downfall sometimes. But, you know, we're very family. If we got nothing if we don't got we, or we ain't got nothing if we don't got us. So.
That's it. Hey, I feel like I could keep yarning to you for the rest of the night. But
it's night time.
I felt like the lighting changed. Maybe some clouds gone over, but I just want to take a moment to just thank you for giving up your time to come here. You know, you are a busy woman, you are a busy professional, and you're doing so much. So to even just give up so much hours of your time to sit with us means so much. And hopefully maybe this time next year we can get you back, you know, and see where things are at in terms of your journey with, you know, your music and all that sort of stuff too. But I think one thing about you as a businesswoman and a brand is that your presence and your ability to communicate has so much of an impact on stage and off stage. And I think, like, there's so much of I mean, you're already paving the way for the amazing music career that you've got, but I also can see so much other capacity from a business perspective as a speaker, and in a whole range of different other capacities too. So I think the future you're paving is really incredible, and it's incredible for you and your family, but just as incredible for our people too. So thank you so much for being with me.
Thank you. Honoured to, you know, God, compliments, hey? Stop it. Nah, love you, my brother. Like, just, you know, same goes. Like, I'm just wouldn't have these yarns, you know, and I'm so honoured to have this yarn, and I can't wait to come back next year and have these yarns. And then the year after that, and we just, you know, and then we're like, you know, back in the
That's it.
You're still doing your podcast.
Might be like Spaniard. I might be like Spaniard. I'll do 5 episodes and then start traveling the world.
Start eating food and fucking. That's the goal, though. Do the podcast, travel the world. Totally. It's been an honour. I think, just, you know, love these yarns. Just so much. It's just sitting with mobbers. Like you said, we could talk for ages. I think mob, once they get on that.
That's it.
You know?
That's it. 100%. 100%. All right. I love you.
Love you.